Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is Alan. Today we're going to be continuing our 10 Flaws series with aliens by looking at the Yuuzhan Vong faction from the expanded universe of Star Wars. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Yuuzhan Vong, they were sort of the next big enemy for the Skywalker family and Republic to deal with after the Emperor and Thrawn were out of the picture. The Yuuzhan Vong originally hailed from another galaxy and somehow managed to travel the huge cold chasm between the galaxies, a journey that very few species had the technological ability and willpower to do. It took the Yuuzhan Vong many generations to cross this giant gap between galaxies, and they constructed what were known as world ships in order to sustain their population. Their technology was based on organic and bioengineering and was quite different and in many ways superior to the technology that the New Republic had access to. Had a very religious and xenophobic social structure, and he had a very formidable enemy to deal with. Which is why, when the Yuuzhan Vong finally started arriving and forcing the outer rim of the galaxy, the New Republic and its defenders were completely unprepared for the onslaught. But unlike the New Republic, you guys will be prepared for a hypothetical invasion by the Yuuzhan Vong because you got me. I read all the new Jedi Order novels growing up and have a pretty comprehensive knowledge about these terrifying Xenos. And I'm prepared to tell you guys what their 10 major weaknesses are. Don't forget to stay until the end of this video where you guys get to rank the Yuuzhan Vong on a scale of 1 to 5 in our poll. Now, one of the main reasons why the Yuuzhan Vong were able to so quickly overwhelm the New Republic's defenses was that the Republic forces and Jedi Order had never seen the type of weapons the Yuuzhan Vong could bring to battle. Many of the weapons that the Yuuzhan Vong fielded in battle were actually far superior to their Republic counterparts. The Vondom Skerkirik, or crab armor, was a living piece of armor that could not only stop blaster projectiles and lightsabers, it could even repair itself. They also had a living serpent-like melee weapon known as the Ampi-Staff, which could cut easily through Duraplast, was extremely flexible, and also could spit poison. But where the Vong really had a weakness in their equipment, by the way, if you really want to piss off the Yuuzhan Vong, just call them Vong. They're anal about stuff like that. Anyway, the weakness with their equipment was their main projectile weapon, known as the Nanghol, or as we call them, thud bugs. These were scarab beetle-like insects that were thrown by the Yuuzhan Vong warriors. Because they were sentient, they were kind of like homing missiles. So if you miss someone, it would just make another pass and come around and hit you in the back. Some of the Nanghol were known as razor bugs, which were built for penetration. Others were known as blast bugs. Blast bugs were a real pain to deal with, but still they were just bugs, which meant they flew a lot slower than your average blaster bolt or slug thrower. Which means it was possible to avoid them, and for a Jedi, it was relatively easy to destroy with your lightsaber. These Nanghol were also a lot larger than your average projectile that the New Republic would use, so that meant that the average warrior could only hold a few of them, and the firing rate of the Nanghol was as fast as an individual could throw them, so they weren't really the most practical or effective long-range weapon. So why would such an advanced warrior species have such limited range options? Well, that comes down to their very toxic and backwards culture, which saw range weapon combat as kind of lesser than melee battles. The Vong loved close quarter combat and considered range combat as unfit for a true warrior. Luckily, their superior heavy armor and great military discipline, for the most part, made up for this, and when they reached melee range with Republic forces, the battle was usually over. That wasn't until towards the end of the war when the Republic finally figured out how to fight the Yuuzhan Vong. Then, being heavily melee focused, massively increased the amount of casualties that the Yuuzhan Vong suffered. The lack of ranged weapons also kind of feeds into the Yuuzhan Vong's death cult mentality. Simply put, the warrior caste of the Vong took not being afraid of death to the next level. Death was considered a great honor for the Vong, and it's safe to say there were some pretty toxic ideas going around about what the end goal of combat should be. While some Vong tacticians were more goal-oriented, the average Vong warrior just wanted to kill people and didn't mind if they died in the process. Because not only did the Yuuzhan Vong revel in killing so-called infidels, they also had no fear of dying and actually enjoyed pain. It was built into their religion. This is also why most warriors, especially the really good ones, have self-inflicted scars and wounds all over their bodies. Although it should be noted the Vong also occasionally use thrall races as their frontline troops. They eat up blaster bolts, landmines, and enemy artillery. At least this way they would lower their casualties. Now when it came to space battles, the Yuuzhan Vong did have to use ranged weapons. And like everything else, the Vong ships also were powered by biotech. This included organic plasma cannons, which were actually also used as artillery pieces. The surfaces of these ships were usually made up of a type of rocky substance known as uric coral, which were grown along with almost everything else they had. The ships were incredibly strong and could survive a head-on collision with your average Republic metal starship, but they lacked shields. Instead, the Yuuzhan Vong used a strange device known as a Dogmatic. These were multiple-purpose organisms that provided both propulsion and defense for Vong ships. These were actually organisms that projected gravity wells and could move around the surface of the ship and intercept incoming projectiles. They could also propel the ship. These devices could also strip away enemy shields. While the Dogmatic caused a lot of problems early on in the war, the New Republic Starfighter Corps eventually figured out how to overwhelm them with staggered shots. As powerful as the Dogmatic were, they aren't fast enough to be in two places at one time, so a wide array of shots at one target surface could usually overwhelm a coral skipper or some other Yuuzhan Vong ship's defenses. And towards the end of the war, the Republic Starfighter Corps gained the upper hand against the Yuuzhan Vong pilots because of this. Because almost all vehicles and weapons were grown, Vong tech actually took quite a long time to produce. These growing sites or farms are also susceptible to sabotage, and on various occasions during the Yuuzhan Vong War, sympathetic Vong and Republic Special Forces were able to taint entire crops of Yuuzhan Vong equipment, resulting in terrible losses for the Vong war machine. One of the main reasons why the Vong really took their battle with the Republic personally was that the New Republic relied mainly on mechanical technology. The Yuuzhan Vong really hated mechanical technology, especially machines that mimicked life, like droids or AI. See, the reason why the Yuuzhan Vong had to leave their former galaxy was that two machine AI races started a massive war in their own galaxy. Although the Vong were able to defeat the machines, in the process they destroyed most of their planets that could support life, which is why they became so technophobic. So while the Republic was learning as much as possible about the Vong's technology, the Vong basically destroyed or threw away any piece of Republic technology they captured. To make things worse, not only could they not salvage Republic technology and try to figure out how it worked and how the Republic thought, or even supplement some of their own weaknesses with Republic technology, their own technology had stopped developing centuries ago. You see, the Vong's technology was given to them by their gods, and a special class called the Shapers were given access to these holy designs. And while in the beginning of the war, Yuuzhan Vong tech was definitely superior to New Republic tech, as the war went on, they never really updated any of their technology. Instead, it was almost like the Vong were recovering technology that they had once lost. So after surviving the Vong's initial assault, the Republic quickly began closing the technological gap thanks to their more open and free-flowing scientific method. These religious ideas not only stopped the Vong from researching technology, it also prevented them from making the necessary tactical and strategic moves during a battle. Talented military leaders were oftentimes removed from high positions and replaced with devout fanatics. Curious individuals who wanted to study and understand the enemy were branded as heretics. Massive losses of material and manpower occurred because commanders didn't want to lose honor. Capable and more rational generals who retreated in the face of impossible odds were executed for not being honorable. The list goes on. An organization that throws away rational thinking quickly becomes a danger to itself. The largest group by far in Yuuzhan Vong society, which was separated into different castes, were the Shamed One. These were individuals who failed to join a caste. This included individuals who were born with physical deformities, heretics, and also individuals who had rejected body implants. Most of the warriors and shapers had all sorts of biotech bolted onto their bodies to enhance their performance. So what you have here is a social system that punishes people for superficial reasons, oftentimes reasons that are out of their control. And what that does is prevents really capable individuals from being productive members of society. On top of that, the Shamed Ones were quite resentful of the higher castes, and with their huge numbers, they represented an internal threat to the Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong were such degenerates that the Force itself abandoned them. Now, we've seen in the past, particularly with Sith Lords, that it is possible for someone to do something so bad or abuse the Force in such a sick way that the Force itself will retaliate. This is what happened to Darth Plagueis after he attempted to make life out of the Force. Initially, the Yuuzhan Vong's lack of presence in the Force confused the Jedi and made it extremely difficult for the Vong to fight them. Jedi relies on the Force to sense incoming attacks and alter an attacker, so in the earlier years of the war, the Jedi were completely unprepared to fight the Yuuzhan Vong and suffered very heavy casualties. But it wasn't always like this. Before the Yuuzhan Vong left their previous galaxy, they actually had a symbiotic Force connection with their planet. But generations of war and violence saw that the Vong species spiraled into chaos and hatred. Eventually, their homeworld was lost to them and their connection with the Force was severed. This caused extreme pain and anguish for the Yuuzhan Vong, and it severely affected their mentality and spirit, which is part of the reason why they're so messed up. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are the 10 flaws of the Yuuzhan Vong. Let me know in the top right corner there in our poll what you rate them. And I think they're pretty much one of the most terrifying species in the galaxy. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of this awesome series. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that life is a movie and you are the protagonist.